Well, that sure was some tournament, wasn't it? As always, March Madness this year was filled with ridiculous amounts of excitement and intrigue. We saw plenty of upsets and Cinderella stories go down, and in regards to what we're discussing today, many of the top prospects in this year's draft played themselves up draft boards on the big stage. Every month I post a mock draft leading up to the real thing, to stay up to date on where the best players in the draft stack up against each other, and to try to start to find some good fits for them in the league. And since the last one I posted came before the tournament started, it only seems right for the next one I post now to come after it has all ended. Before we start though, I want to thank PrizePicks for sponsoring this video. PrizePicks is the perfect service for all of us basketball fans here because when you're involved, it makes watching games every night so much more fun and engaging. Basically, it's an application that provides you with lines on all kinds of individual player props, such as points, rebounds, assists, three-pointers made, amongst others, and you simply have to choose whether you believe they will record over the set amount in the line or under the set amount in the line. Make your selections, wager however much you want to, and if your picks hit, you can win some big money. There aren't any NBA games being played tonight, so I can't make my typical picks, but PrizePicks also has many other sports outside of basketball to choose from, so you too can play along with any of the other professional leagues. If this sounds at all intriguing to you, then go use the link down in the description of the video to sign up today and use promo code REFERENCE to receive a 100% deposit match bonus up to $100. Once again, thank you to PrizePicks for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the topic at hand. Starting things off with the first pick in the draft, the Orlando Magic select Paolo Banchero from Duke. I'll admit I was a little shaky on how I perceived Banchero as a prospect going into the tournament, but he put on a show throughout it and led his Duke team to the Final Four, playing exactly how a top pick should play on the big stage. His footwork, finishing ability, post-game, and shooting at his size, all while demonstrating improved court vision and decision-making, quelled a lot of hesitancy that me and many others likely had about him, and the Magic would surely welcome him with open arms at the top here. Next up with the second pick, the Houston Rockets select Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga. Holmgren remains a player that people are either really high on or kind of low on, and his performances in March Madness showed exactly why that is. He was stuffing the stat sheets, grabbing a ton of rebounds and blocking countless shots every game, but he didn't really shoot it all that well, and he was in foul trouble a bit because teams continually went right at him to test his strength. I'm confident that he's a better shooter than what he showed in the tournament, but his frail frame is something that could prove to be a real concern, but all in all, he is a phenomenal defender, and the positives in his game outweigh the negatives. Up next with the third pick, the Detroit Pistons select Jabari Smith from Auburn. Smith's tournament run ended pretty early after they got upset by Miami, and Smith himself didn't exactly play great that day, shooting just 3 of 16 from the field and 1 of 8 from 3 in that loss. It definitely wasn't the kind of showing you would expect from a number 1 pick, but at the same time, it's just one game, and we're not here to overreact too much to one game, because he has an entire season's worth of impressive two-way performances to go off of. The top 3 of this draft is so close though, and there isn't a clear top prospect like in years past, so Smith unfortunately comes in at third for now because of it. Next up with the fourth pick, the Oklahoma City Thunder select Jaden Ivey from Purdue. Ivey had an up-and-down tournament overall, showcasing so many things to love with his quickness, dynamic athleticism, and aggressiveness with shot-making ability, but he also showcased some concerns with his feel for the game and ability as a passer and playmaker. There's still way too much upside to pass on with him though, and he's still the best of the next tier of talent this year, so he comes in at number 4 overall. Up next with the fifth pick, the Indiana Pacers select Keegan Murray from Iowa. Murray and his Iowa team also unfortunately had a short stint in the tournament, getting upset in the first round, but the loss definitely wasn't on Murray, who still scored an efficient 21 points and continued to show off the versatility on both ends of the floor that draft scouts love from him. He's long, he's agile, and he's highly skilled for a forward, so in the NBA he projects to be a quality secondary scorer who impacts the defensive end of the floor at a high level as well. Next up, with the 6th pick in the draft, the Portland Trail Blazers select Shaedon Sharpe from Kentucky. Sharpe, as I have mentioned in the last few times in these mock drafts, remains the biggest mystery of the class because of the fact that we don't even know for sure yet whether he'll be entering this year's draft, along with the fact that he didn't even play a game for Kentucky this year. But I remain incredibly high on his potential after he reclassified to this year's draft class, while previously being the top-ranked recruit for next year. The Blazers have their point guard of the future in Anthony Simons, so adding Sharpe in alongside him in that backcourt at the shooting guard position could become a lethal duo down the line. Next up, with the 7th pick, the Sacramento Kings select AJ Griffin from Duke. Griffin is another player who had a pretty up-and-down tournament where he looked tremendous, creating off the dribble and shooting it at times, while other times his lack of athletic burst was noticeable. The reason why the risk feels worth it with him is because he's one of the youngest players in the entire draft, and he very well may still be recovering from the injuries that he suffered last year, so the hope is that eventually he'll get back to where he was before those injuries when he was more explosive. Up next, with the 8th pick, the New Orleans Pelicans select Johnny Davis from Wisconsin. Davis's production tailed off a bit near the end of the season, but it feels unfair to hold that against him, as he was playing through an ankle injury that he suffered late in the year to try to help his team win. Before that ankle injury happened, he was one of the best scorers in the country, so I anticipate NBA scouts will be taking note of that and focus on what he can be once he's back to 100% health. Next up, with the 9th pick, the San Antonio Spurs select Jalen Duren from Memphis. Duren actually matched up with Chet Holmgren in the tournament this year, but Holmgren got the better of him as Duren struggled throughout that game against Gonzaga. Admittedly, Duren isn't much of a scorer in the post, so his upside offensively is kind of limited, but if you're drafting him, you're doing so knowing full well that his strengths come in the areas of rebounding, protecting the rim, getting out in transition, and operating pick and rolls where he excels as the roll man. Next up, with the 10th pick, the Washington Wizards select Bennedict Mathurin from Arizona. I mention this every time I make a mock draft just to keep hammering it home, but this year's draft class is filled with quality scoring talent on the wing and at the guard positions, and Mathurin definitely falls into that category. He had some electrifying performances in the tournament, including a game where he scored 30 in a crazy comeback win against TCU. Mathurin's biggest concern is staying engaged defensively, but he has great size and tools to improve there as he gets more experience under his belt. Next up, with the 11th pick, the Portland Trail Blazers select Ochai Agbaji from Kansas. Agbaji is yet another brilliant scoring talent in this year's draft, and he has shown that he is a flat-out bucket getter on his way to leading his Kansas team to the championship. It's so easy to see how his game will translate to the NBA as a potential 15 to 18 point scorer who hits spot-up threes incredibly efficiently, gets out in transition, and plays tough perimeter defense, so despite being one of the older prospects, he's easily lottery talent. Next up, with the 12th pick, the New York Knicks select Mark Williams from Duke. Mitchell Robinson might leave in free agency this summer from the Knicks, and Mark Williams' draft stock has continued to soar throughout the tournament, so this seems like a very good fit. He's a terrific defender and rebounder, he's an active motor around the rim, finishing at such a reliable rate with opportunities that he gets, and does a ton of the little things that help you win games that don't show up in the box score. Next up, with the 13th pick, the Houston Rockets select Tari Eason from LSU. Eason is one of the more versatile forwards in this year's draft as a switchable defender who can defend multiple positions, and offensively, he gives you a good balance of production across the board. As long as his jumper continues to improve like it has over the course of the year, he definitely has lottery talent in him. And finally, the last pick of the lottery belongs to the Charlotte Hornets, and they select Jeremy Sochan from Baylor. Sochan's showing in the tournament helped him a ton as more scouts got to see how interesting of a player that he is that can play small ball center in lineups while also creating offense off the dribble, which creates a ton of mismatches and is exactly the kind of player that NBA teams love today. He is positionless with a ton of skill, and on a Charlotte team that likes to get out and run, he would be a perfect fit. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below who you want your favorite team to draft this year. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.